Good evening, everyone. I have spoken at almost every single storytelling event since it was conceived, and I have, like some speakers this evening, shared a lot of very painful and honest stories, and it does take a lot of guts. And it's also very healing, so there's an invitation to speak. My story tonight is more fun and frivolous, and I hope you'll enjoy it. I think around matters of the heart there are many times when we're faced with decisions of integrity. And in my life I've made some crap integritous decisions, and in this particular story I think I made a good one. So, hello lovely. So my story is set around this time last year, and I'm in a behavior pattern which I call the Tinder binge. And how the Tinder binge works is you wake up in the morning, you grab your phone, you go straight into your Tinder, and you start swiping, obviously based on, arbitrary attraction. And by lunchtime you're having conversations with 10 or 12 guys, and by the end of the afternoon you have 2 dates set up. And the next morning you wake up and you grab your Tinder app and you go through the same thing again. So I had a lot of dates, and my weekends were a very full social calendar. And in amongst one of my Tinder dates that I swiped on was a guy called Alberto. And what made me swipe on Alberto's profile is he only had 2 things written. The first was 1.89 meters. I'm a tall woman in Chile. That's sexy. And the other thing he had written is Virgo. And I've been studying astrology since I was a younger woman than I am now. And I know that I am attractive to Virgo men, so this was going to be quite cool. If nothing, I knew Alberto would fancy me, and that would be helpful. And so Alberto and I did meet for coffee, and I was right, he fancied me. He didn't speak a word of English. He did message me all the time in English, so that was pretty cool, but didn't speak a word when we got together, but very proudly told me that his eldest son, a 14-year-old, did speak good English. And he had a daughter who was 10. And that information, although I think it was part of his sales pitch, was actually a real put-off for me. I don't know how many of you ladies are in your second stage of dating, and you date guys with kids. It's pretty much like being single, because every other weekend they have kids, and every Wednesday night they have kids, and you've got to keep dating other people. So when Alberto sent me the message the next day to say, I really like you, as I was anticipating, I had to reply and say, I'm sorry Alberto, I'm just not interested in dating a guy with kids. It's not going to be possible for us. And he responded very quickly with, no. I want you to meet my kids. And there was a 3-day weekend coming up. He said, come with me and my kids for a 3-day weekend to the countryside. There's a big family gathering. And it'll be safe because the kids are there, and it'll be safe because family's there. And I'm an improviser, so I said, yes. And so Alberto came to collect me in his simple family car with his 2 gorgeous kids. I really definitely fell for the kids. His eldest son's name is Benjamin, and he speaks beautiful English. And we went to a town by the name of Cabillo Horse. ¿Cómo se dice horse in español? Caballo? Right, that's where we went, to a town called Caballo, which is pretty much like a 1-horse town. There are maybe 10 buildings of the same height. One of them is the bottle store, come supermarket stuff, and there are several dozen horses. What I learned by the time we got there is that Alberto's uncle, Tio, is a breeder of a very fancy horse, and he's a big dude in the rodeo circles. So that was interesting. So when we got there to their home, there was a big party already ensuing. And I don't know where Alberto got 1.89 meters from, because the rest of his family were really very little people. Little and broad. And all of them looked pretty similar. Uncle Theo, however, the horse guy, he was a very charming gentleman. He must be in his late 70s by now. And he took a fancy to me immediately upon arrival. And him doing so meant that everybody took a fancy to me. So all Alberto's family decided that I was like a celebrity. I'm not sure how much interaction they'd have with blonde English-speaking South African women before, and they really treated me like I was a celebrity. People wanted to come close and touch my hair and my clothing, and they took their cameras on their mobile phones. They made calls to family members who weren't at the party to say, look, we're here with Michelle. Look, it's Michelle. It was really an extraordinary, and I went with it, because why not? Yes, I am celebrity status, thank you very much. And at some point in the evening arrived the real hero of my story, Carlos. I don't know how Carlos was related to anybody. By that time it was so unimportant. And Carlos was shorter than most and broader than most. And he was with his wife, who was short and broad. And 4 or 5 kids that Carlos and his clan brought. And Carlos was particularly enamored with me. He really did believe I was a celebrity. And what he wanted to happen, his request, was that I would interview him as if I were a TV interviewer. But I must interview him in English. Benjamin must translate it into Spanish. He must then answer in Spanish, and it must be given back to me in English, like properly celeb TV stuff, man. And so I did it. And I asked Carlos and his wife, where would you like to be in 5 years? That's beautiful. And what is it that keeps you busy on weekends? That's amazing. And Carlos and his wife were beaming. It was really stunning. Until Alberto came back and said, stop this, leave Michelle, she's mine. And so we started the dancing. The real party began at about midnight. And the favored drink of this particular family was red wine and Coca-Cola. Right? Mix the two together, that produces a party. And you put on music from some other era that's like swing, and you get there on the dance floor and you gun it. So that's what I did, because you must. Only I'm this tall, blonde celebrity girl dancing, and Carlos, it's driving him wild. Every time I make a sexy move, Carlos is in front of me and he's sexy moving and he's trying to get really close to me. And I look in the corner and Mrs. Carlos is shooting daggers at me in the eyeballs. And I really do not need to be this only blonde woman in the middle of this one-horse town causing trouble. So I decided to sneak off and be nice and quiet. And wherever I went. And Benjamin, at some point in the evening, or when I was hiding, Benjamin came to find me. Michelle, you are needed in the kitchen. Michelle, you are needed in the kitchen. Me? Yes, everybody's waiting in the kitchen for you. Oh my God. But now I've had some, red wine and Coke too, so let's go to the kitchen meeting. And in I go, and the whole family is surrounding the kitchen table, and this is 30, 40 odd people here. And Carlos is in the center of the group. And Carlos says, Michelle, I have a question for you. In Spanish, of course. And Benjamin has to translate and has to go. And I go, okay. And the whole family's looking at me. Everyone's eyeballs are focused on me. And he takes a big swig of booze. And he says, Michelle. And he points across at his wife and he says, this woman, is she the love of my life? What the fuck? I don't even know these people, right? I mean, I'm here for one coffee date on my Tinder binge. How do I know? And my brain fortunately worked quite fast. It did what I'm sure most of us would do in that situation. It said, buy some time. So I stared at Carlos for a minute and then I said, Benjamin, say this to Carlos. Carlos, may I ask you a question? And of course he said, yes, you may. And by that time my brain had somehow figured out a question based on his question. So I said, Carlos, would you do anything in your power to protect and love this woman? And he said, I will! And everybody said, yeah! And the shouting and the screaming and the relief, thank God for that. So needless to say, I've lost power. No, I've got it back, thank you very much. That was the moment of silence, regardless. The relationship between Alberto and I did not work out. I do miss Benjamin so much, I really fell for those kids. And I hope that Carlos and his sweet wife do not need celebrities from South Africa to go to their home and tell them that they are the love of each other's lives. Thank you.